Well, here at the Aussie Wire, we've been following these so-called fact checkers. We brought you the revelations thanks to great work by Rukshan Fernando and a lawsuit from Avi Yemeni from Rebel News that the fact-checking contract was actually released. It became public and it was relatively uncomfortable. I'm not going to say it was damning. Of course, there was going to be a contractual relationship there between, for example, RMIT FactLab and Meta, who they're doing the fact-checking for. But once those details come out, it does raise a lot more questions than what it answers. But now there's even more questions going on, and I had to bring Rukshan Fernando back. This is, of course, an extension of the great work that he started, but things have gotten to be a bit of a mess with FactLab, with Meta, with what in the world is going on. So, Rukshan Fernando, thank you for coming back on the Aussie Wire, hopefully to clear up some of this confusion out of my head. You've done some great work, and we're going to put a link to one of your videos into the description of this video. I highly recommend people go and watch it. You've given people a bit of a rundown on what's happening, but just the Cliff Notes version. What's going on? What's been the fallout now?
Great to be back, Topher. Well, the fallout is that the fact checker themselves has been suspended by Meta. And I'm laughing because, normally it's this company or this organization, RMIT FactLab, that goes around graying out people's posts on Facebook or, effectively censoring them. And embarrassingly for them, they have been disgraced by Facebook themselves, by Meta, by having their status, their access to this fact-checking tools of Facebook suspended. Because of some of the complaints that they've received about them, and also the fact that they are not certified according to the Meta's own policies that they need to adhere to. So since that's become more revealed, since I think Sky News ran a story on this, since some Australian senators started asking questions about this, Meta has had to take an action against this group, and I think it's a good step in the right direction in holding these type of institutions accountable, because they've just been running amok against Australians over the last few years with a lot of, in my opinion, erroneous fact checks. And to see that these organizations are now being held accountable. And now I know not everyone's going to be happy with the way they're being held accountable, maybe, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Well, it's quite a sharp departure from the direction that we've been seeing us going in. This sort of censorship industrial complex, the speech protection racket that has appeared since COVID came along, thanks to Meta, thanks to governments working hand in hand with fact checkers. And like you say, they've been cancelled now, and it is quite hilarious for people like us who have had our accounts suspended in the past on their say-so. But to me, there appear to be three different issues here. There is the contractual relationship that was revealed as a result of the Avi Yemeni lawsuit that you brought out and you found in your own research. And what was interesting about that was the incentives that it created. And I talked about that on the Aussie Wire a little while ago. It created incentives to simply produce a volume of content rather than a quality of content. And I think there's some serious quality assurance issues there. Then there's the issue of certification. And this was 100% your work, and I applaud you for this, uncovering the fact that they were operating, claiming to have a certification that actually the certifying body did not actually say that they had. That's what Sky News then picked up and amplified your story on that. And that appears to have done some damage. But there's a third point here that is coming out now, and that is that there is the appearance of a very strong level of bias, particularly around the Voice campaign. I would argue on many things before that, but I think it's particularly obvious on the Voice campaign. And it was kind of revealed as a result of this big argument about how many pages are in the statement from the heart. Can you break down for us a little bit what's likely to be the outcome of this suspension, and what do you really think was the reason for it? Because there's a couple of possible candidates.
Yes, look, I think this suspension is temporary. It's just Meta covering their backside because of the political pressure, particularly from the Australian Parliament. I think they're taking these steps to appear like they are transparent and accountable, like they've said so. But they're only doing that now because they've been caught with their pants down, right? Like that's what's happened in this scenario. In terms of the certification thing, I think it's important to note that many people have actually raised that issue about certification, because you can see it on the IFCN website. When you go there, you can see they have a list of the people who are expired. So it's very plain as day when you go to this certification place. And many people have been bringing that up. What happened with me in particular was I found it in the contractual obligations there as well, that the paperwork that they've signed with Meta. So I guess there's a different standard than just seeing it on this website. And then the fact that you have a big outlet like Sky News running this around this issue when it happened with the one-page statement, with Uluru Statement from the Heart, because they fact-checked Peter Credlin. Then you had the politicians who are also on, I guess, the no side getting involved as well and asking some questions. So there's two parts to it. I think it's kind of sad that when ordinary people like myself or Other users have brought this fact up. Meta never took any action on these
Mm,
things.
mm,
And when it came to this kind of political pressure, which is okay in this instance, but I understand why it happened. But when it
mm,
came to this political pressure, they were more willing to act, and I think it shows you that there has to be this union between the everyday person and also politicians when it comes to standing up to these type of organizations,
mm,
and of course the mainstream media, they have to be on side as well
mm.
in terms of holding these people accountable. And for a long time, they have not been doing that. And I'm not even sure if Sky News would have, got involved in the manner that they had if they had not themselves been subject to an
To that
erroneous
fact
fact
check.
check that they
Mm,
felt. So with
mm,
this one-page statement, the problem with that is, and the problem around fact checking this thing is, the very people that RMIT FactLab used to, their experts, were the same people that had previously said that this Uluru statement is more than just one page.
yeah.
So their very fact checks include the people who have made those statements in the past. I mean, you see how that's a problem. And then you're delving into this area where it's more about activism,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to expert style fact checking, which they claim to do. And this is why we have a lot of complaints around this process, because a lot of the fact checks done by RMIT FactLab, as it relates to the voice to Parliament, seems to go in one direction.
Yeah.
And your guess is as good as mine, Topher. You probably know what direction that's in.
Look, Rukshan, it calls to mind a line out of George Orwell's 1984, which is, of course, an often misquoted book, but I think in this case it is actually appropriate. He speaks of there being an ever-changing present. There is no past, there is just an ever-changing present in which the party is always right. And here we have these fact-checkers saying, no, don't listen to what I said last year. No, listen to what I'm saying now. The present is what's right. But there's another area where that's happening, and you've just said there you suspect that this suspension will probably be temporary. There's a part of me that agrees with you. They're likely just to go and re-get their certification and be able to tick that box in the contract. But there is one last layer to this that I want to touch on before we close this story, and that is the fact that the FactLab team have been removed from the RMIT FactLab website. ABC have been making changes to the staff that they list on their website as fact checkers. There does appear to be more to this than just a matter of, we'll sort out the paperwork. What do we know, or what do you think might be happening there?
Yeah, look, I think they're being challenged. They're a bit embarrassed. They're a bit panicky. I'm sure they're having little meetings in their rooms at RMIT about how to deal with this, the public fallout of it, because this hasn't really happened before. This has become an international story as well, and it's embarrassing because this is a university and they're now embroiled in this. ABC is embroiled on this, and there's a lot of questionable things that arise from this. That's why they're doing all these major changes to their website, changes to their team. They've Thank God they've put some transparency back into their website and actually listed now that they're paid by Meta as well, that they're getting money from Meta, because that never used to be there. So they've done that. Funnily enough, they've also disclosed, Tofa, on their support page now on RMIT FactLab, that they are also getting grants from IFCN, which is the accreditors. So think about this. The same people accrediting RMIT FactLab are also giving them grants, which I'm guessing are monetary grants. And then, supposedly now they're going to, check their accreditation again and give it to them, most likely. Well, why not? They're already giving them grants. This whole relationship revolves around something, with something which is very incestuous in nature, in the way it kind of all works out. And the worst part of all of this, when looking into this, IFCN, which is a part of this Pointer Institute, they have many links to other donors and international foreign funds and so on. One example, this was actually, very well funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So a lot of this kind of foreign money, a lot of these lobby groups, advocacy groups from overseas, there's many there on the list. You can actually go to the website and see who they are. That money is then now trickling down to organizations like RMIT FactLab. And these kind of relationships have never been disclosed, but they're being disclosed now. And I think that's because we are looking into them. And I think it's very important that we continue to do this, because it just means that they're more accountable and more careful in the way that they, carry on as activists. I don't mind that there's fact checkers. One of the great things on X right now is community notes. And I'm not sure if you've seen much of the community notes in action, but that seems like a very fair system of fact checking that takes into account a whole bunch of views and kind of comes to this middle of the ground conclusion. Sometimes it might go your way, sometimes it might not, but it seems very fair and transparent how it all operates. With these activists at RMIT FactLab, they have a lot of left-leaning opinions from
Mm-hmm.
what I've seen on their Twitter profiles and
Mm-hmm.
so on,
Mm-hmm.
and they act on those similar type of opinions.
Yeah.
And it's very transparent to me what they're doing.
Yeah.
They are being transparent, but in the activist sense.
Mm.
So I think it's good now that we're seeing them their feet held to the fire, and they're trying to be more responsible.
Well, look, I applaud your role in helping the story to blow up and adding to the story. It's now being picked up by mainstream media. Whether that would have even happened at all were it not for the alternative media like yourself, like RV Yemeni and Rebel News, keeping the pressure on for so long, well, we'll never know the answer to that. But I do thank you for your role in making it blow up. It is transparency that's the key. I'm of the opinion that everyone is biased, and the people who think they're not biased are the most dangerous of all because they're blind to their own biases. I'm biased. I'm pro-freedom. I'm pro-humanity. I'm pro-individualism. I want to see humans flourish. That's my bias, and that's where I come from and everything, and I try to be very transparent and upfront about that. It's these organisations that claim to be unbiased that I think are the ones that you really need to keep an eye on. A little bit of sunlight goes a long way. Rukshan, thank you for helping to shine that sunlight onto this story.
Thanks, mate. See you next time.